What would you do if the one person you trusted most slipped a dagger into your heart under the guise of love? On January 22nd, 2025, Emma faced that chilling reality in her snowbound Boston apartment, the clock ticking past midnight as dread coiled in her gut. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "He's lying." Check his briefcase. A cybersecurity genius who'd exposed corporate lies. She never imagined betrayal lurking so close. Inside Jack's briefcase, a gold ring engraved 2L, my eternal, not her initial, shattered her world. Option 1, confront him now. Option 2, dig deeper in silence. Comment your choice, 1 or 2. If you love stories of resilience, reclaiming justice with style, and rediscovering your worth, hit that subscribe button for Graceful Revenge now. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Let's dive into the power of elegant revenge and life's deepest lessons together. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows as snow piled against the panes, a restless storm mirroring the chaos within her. Emma stood by the counter, her fingers tracing the edge of a cold coffee mug, her breath fogging in the chill of her own suspicion. She'd spent 12 years dismantling digital deceptions for Fortune 500 companies, her mind a steel trap for lies. But this felt raw, visceral, a breach in her personal firewall. She crossed to the living room, her bare feet silent on the hardwood, and stopped at Jack's black leather briefcase, propped against the couch. He'd left that morning, claiming a late meeting at First National Bank, his voice casual as he'd kissed her goodbye. Now, doubt gnawed at her like a relentless virus. She clicked the latches open, her hands trembling slightly, and rifled through the contents: loan documents, a pen, a crumpled tie. Then, beneath a notepad, she found it, the velvet box. Inside, the gold ring gleamed, its engraving a silent scream of betrayal. Her stomach dropped, her vision blurring as the room tilted. A memory flooded in. Jack, on a foggy Nantucket shore 6 years ago, his hazel eyes bright as he knelt in the sand. "Emma, you're my forever," he'd said, his voice thick with emotion, slipping a simple silver ring onto her finger. She'd laughed, tears streaming down her face, her heart swelling with a love she thought unbreakable. They danced under the stars that night, the waves crashing as she whispered, "Always." Now, that promise dissolved into the icy air, replaced by the weight of a stranger's ring in her palm. The front door creaked open, and Emma snapped the box shut, shoving it back into the briefcase as her pulse raced. "Hey, babe, what a day," Jack called, shrugging off his snow-dusted coat. His cheeks were flushed, his smile too wide, and a faint whiff of coconut lingered, not the stale coffee she'd expected from a bank meeting. "Long night?" she asked, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside, her arms crossed to hide her shaking hands. "Yeah, clients wouldn't let up." He pecked her forehead, his breath warm against her skin, his eyes darting away. Jack, the earnest banker who'd charmed her with quiet kindness and homemade stews, now stood as a shadow of the man she'd married. "Chicago tomorrow, right?" She tilted her head, watching his shoulders stiffen. Yeah, early flight. Gotta crash soon." He turned to the fridge, fumbling with a beer bottle, avoiding her gaze. She nodded, her mind a whirlwind of suspicion. The ring, the scent, the text. She wouldn't confront him. She'd hunt the truth herself. That night, as Jack's snores rumbled beside her, Emma lay awake, her thoughts a tangled web of doubt and resolve. She slipped from bed, her feet cold against the floor, and grabbed his phone from the nightstand. His passcode, 0615, their wedding date, yielded easily, and she dug into his cloud backups. His texts were clean, his emails mundane, but a hidden folder revealed the lie. A boarding pass for Maui, not Chicago, departing at 6:30 a.m. No return ticket. Her chest tightened, her breath shallow. She opened her laptop, booked a flight 2 hours behind his, and packed a bag in the dark, her movements silent and deliberate. Hawaii held her reckoning. Emma waved Jack off at dawn, her smile a brittle mask, as his taxi vanished into the snowy streets. She drove to Logan Airport, her own bag stashed in the trunk, and boarded her flight to Maui, her laptop humming with his digital footprints. She hacked his credit card midair, a $5,000 charge for a suite at the Wailea Palms Resort, a luxury retreat far beyond his modest salary. She landed under a bruised orange sky, the humid air thick with salt and suspicion, and rented a silver sedan, her sunglasses and a wide-brimmed hat her only shield. She found his blue Jeep in the resort lot and parked at a distance, her heart pounding as she waited, her fingers tapping nervously against the steering wheel. 2 hours later, he emerged from the lobby, but he wasn't alone. Lily stepped out beside him, her younger sister, her golden hair cascading over a floral dress, her laughter bright as she leaned into Jack's arm. Emma's breath stopped, a cold blade twisting in her gut. Lily, the dreamer who'd coasted on Emma's success since their teens, now clung to her husband with an intimacy that screamed betrayal. A flashback clawed its way up. Lily at 15, sprawled on Emma's dorm bed at MIT, her eyes red from crying over a boy. "You're the only one who gets me, Em," she'd sniffled, clutching Emma's hand as Emma stayed up, soothing her with hot cocoa and promises. They'd laughed about it later, sisters against the world, their bond a lifeline through Lily's chaos and Emma's discipline. Now, that memory burned to ash as Emma watched them climb into the Jeep, Jack's hand brushing Lily's back, their heads bent in conspiracy. She tailed them at a cautious distance, her knuckles white on the wheel, as they wound through lush roads to a cliffside chapel, St. Augustine's, its white steeple piercing the sky like a judgment. Jack stepped out in a black suit, a crimson tie knotted at his throat, his face alight with a grin she hadn't seen in years. Lily followed, her white dress flowing, a veil trailing behind. A bride. Emma parked behind a thicket of palms, her phone's camera zooming in as she crouched, her pulse a frantic drumbeat against her ribs. Through the chapel's cracked window, she recorded the scene, her hand steady despite the chaos within. Henry and Grace sat in the front pew, their faces glowing with smug satisfaction, not surprise. Jack's voice carried on the breeze. "I, Jack, take you, Lily, to be my lawfully wedded wife." Lily giggled, her tone sharp and venomous. "Emma doesn't suspect a thing, does she?" "Not a chance," Jack replied, his smirk cold. "She's too busy saving the internet to notice us." Henry leaned forward, his voice low but clear. "Divorce her quick. We'll split her fortune. She's got millions tied up in those patents." Grace nodded, her smile tight. "She'll keep paying us. Too proud to abandon family." Emma's blood turned to ice, her finger unwavering on the record button as the words sank in. This wasn't just infidelity. It was a calculated heist, her life the vault they planned to plunder. Another memory struck. Henry at her high school graduation, pulling her aside as she clutched her valedictorian medal. "You're our star, kid," he'd said, his eyes warm, while she'd quietly paid their electric bill the next month. Now she saw the strings they'd tied to her success, each, "I'm proud," a down payment on her ruin. A rustle in the bushes made her flinch, her heart leaping into her throat. A squirrel, not a spy. She exhaled, her breath shaky, but the fear lingered. Had they seen her? She adjusted her position, her knees aching against the damp earth, as Jack glanced toward the window. "What's that?" Lily whispered, her voice tense. "Just a bird," Jack muttered, turning back to the altar. Emma steadied herself, her resolve hardening. She had enough. Their voices, their plot, their laughter at her expense. They'd underestimated her, their first and fatal mistake. Back in her rented room at a cheap motel off the resort strip, Emma sat on the edge of the bed, the footage looping on her laptop, casting stark shadows across the peeling wallpaper. The ring, the veil, the vows played in her mind like a corrupted file, each frame a fresh wound that bled into her soul. Her husband, her sister, her parents, all conspirators in a plot to strip her bare, to turn her love into a bankroll for their greed. The weight of it pressed against her chest, a suffocating fog she couldn't shake. But what should she do? Her inner voice fractured into a cacophony of conflicting truths, each vying for control as she paced the cramped space, her footsteps echoing on the linoleum. "Forgive them," a soft whisper pleaded, its tone gentle but insistent. "They're broken people, not monsters. You've loved them too long to hate them now." She saw Jack's sheepish grin after their first Thanksgiving, the turkey charred, but his apology earnest as he'd held her hand. She pictured Lily's clumsy hugs after teenage tantrums, her tearful gratitude when Emma bailed her out of countless messes. Henry and Grace's rare smiles flashed too, the time they'd driven 6 hours to her college graduation, beaming from the stands. Could she salvage those fragments, rebuild from the wreckage of their betrayal? Was love enough to bridge this chasm? "Expose them!" a fiercer voice roared, its edge sharp and unyielding. "Rip their masks off. Let the world see their filth. Make them pay in shame what they stole in trust." She imagined the headlines blazing across Boston. Tech genius betrayed by family in secret Hawaiian wedding plot. Their social standing, Henry and Grace's country club prestige, Lily's curated Instagram glow, Jack's small-town charm, would collapse like a house of cards. It felt righteous, a cleansing fire to burn away their lies. But a shadow lingered. Would it scorch her too? Turn her into a wielder of vengeance instead of a seeker of truth? "Walk away?" a third voice murmured, its tone weary but resolute. "Cut them out like a cancer. Build a life they can't touch, free of their poison." That promised peace, a clean slate unburdened by their greed, a chance to start fresh without the weight of their shadows. But it left a hollow ache, no justice, no answers, just silence. Was she fleeing from the fight, abandoning the scales she longed to balance, or was she saving herself from a war that might consume her? She stopped pacing, her reflection staring back from a cracked mirror above the dresser. Her eyes were sunken, her jaw tight, her hands clenched into fists. Forgiveness might heal her heart, mend the pieces of a family she'd once cherished. But did they deserve it after this cold-blooded scheme? Exposure would wound them deeply, perhaps irreparably. Henry and Grace's twilight years tarnished, Lily's future shattered, Jack's career in ruins. It was a hammer she could swing, but would its weight crush her own soul, stain her with the bitterness she despised? Leaving was the simplest path, a quiet retreat from the battlefield. But could she live without closure, without facing the ghosts of their betrayal head-on? Her analyst's mind craved a clear equation, a binary choice, but her heart pulsed with raw, uncharted pain, a storm with no compass. A knock shattered her reverie, and she spun, grabbing a lamp from the nightstand, her pulse spiking as she braced for a fight. "Housekeeping!" a muffled voice called through the door. Emma exhaled, lowering the lamp, her nerves frayed to threads. The paranoia was real. They might suspect her absence, sense her shadow lurking in their paradise. She couldn't stay here, exposed and vulnerable. She sat at the desk, her laptop glowing in the dim light, and fired off emails with the precision of a sniper. To Sarah, her lawyer. "File for divorce immediately. Jack's committing bigamy. Evidence attached. Freeze all joint assets, no exceptions." To her bank. "Move my funds to a new account, inaccessible to my family. Do it tonight." To Mia, her assistant. "Book me the red-eye to Boston. I'm done here." But revenge simmered, a dark tide rising in her chest, its pull too strong to ignore. She hacked deeper into Jack's phone, her fingers flying over the keys as she unearthed a year of texts with Lily, their mockery a fresh blade in her heart. "Emma's our cash cow," Lily wrote, her words dripping with glee. Jack replied, "She'll fund our new life and never know." Another exchange, months old. "Her patents alone are worth millions," Henry chimed in, a group chat with Grace. "She's too soft to fight us." Emma's jaw clenched, her eyes narrowing to slits. They'd pay, but how far would she go? The moral question hung heavy, a splinter she couldn't pull. Emma didn't sleep. The Maui night pressed against the motel windows, the distant crash of waves, a mocking serenade as she sat at her laptop, crafting their downfall with the meticulous care of an architect designing a prison. Her plan unfolded in layers, each step a brick in the wall of their destruction, each decision weighed against the ethical storm still raging within her. She leaned back in the creaking chair, her coffee cold, and let her mind run through the moves, testing them for cracks, refining them into a weapon as sharp as her pain. Step 1. The divorce. Sarah would file at first light, citing bigamy, fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress, a legal trifecta that would gut Jack's claims to her wealth. Her patents, her bonuses, her stock options, millions she'd earned through sleepless nights and brilliant code, would stay hers alone. She'd leave him with nothing but the clothes on his back, his smug confidence shredded by her evidence. She pictured his face when the papers hit, his charm useless against the cold reality of her recordings. A memory flickered. Jack on their first anniversary, cooking her favorite pasta, his apron smeared with sauce as he grinned. "We're a team, Em," he'd said, kissing her nose. Now, she'd dissolve that team with a signature. Step 2, the house. She called a moving company at 2 a.m., her voice low and firm. "Tomorrow, 7 a.m. sharp. Take everything I paid for. Art, furniture, appliances, books. Lock it in a storage unit under my name only." The home she'd built, her sanctuary of quiet evenings and shared dreams, would become their empty shell. She'd sell the deed before they landed, the profit wired to her new account, erasing every trace of their life together. Another flashback, Jack assembling their dining table, his laughter echoing as he fumbled with the screws. "Our castle," he'd called it, pulling her into a hug. She'd dismantle that castle, brick by brick. Step 3. Henry and Grace. She'd bankrolled their lives for years, their mortgage, their medical bills, their annual cruises, while they pampered Lily, their special child, and took Emma's success for granted. She'd cut the cord, but their real currency was their social standing, their polished facade at the country club and church. She dug into their digital dirt, her skills unearthing a gold mine. Henry's tax-dodged rental properties, hidden in shell companies. Grace's charity skimming, thousands funneled to personal accounts over a decade. She drafted an anonymous leak to a Boston muckraker, complete with bank records and emails, scheduled to hit the web the day they returned. A memory stung. Grace at Emma's first big promotion party, raising a glass with tears in her eyes. "Our rock, our pride," she'd said, while Emma paid for the catering. Pride in her wallet, not her soul. Step 4. Lily! Her sister's betrayal cut deepest, a wound that pulsed with every recalled kindness, every late-night talk. Lily had no assets to seize, no career to ruin. She'd lived off Emma's generosity since dropping out of college. But Emma could take her future, her shallow dreams of influencer fame. She hacked Lily's social media, planting subtle cracks. Fake DMs suggesting unpaid debts, a cheating scandal, a mental breakdown. When the divorce broke, Lily's followers would turn, her curated life collapsing under scrutiny. Another flashback. Lily at 13, braiding Emma's hair before a school dance, whispering, "You're my hero, Em!" That hero was dead, replaced by a judge wielding a digital gavel. Step 5. Jack's career. He'd built his modest banking gig on her referrals, her network smoothing his path. She could end that too. She found emails in his work account, flirtations with clients, hints of fudged numbers, and forwarded them anonymously to his HR department, a ticking bomb set to detonate when he returned. A memory flashed. Jack at his first bank promotion, toasting her at dinner. "You're my lucky charm," he'd said, his eyes warm. She'd strip that luck away, leave him scrambling. The ethical dilemma resurfaced, a relentless tide crashing against her resolve. Was this justice or vengeance? Jack and Lily had gutted her trust, their secret vows a knife in her spine, their laughter a poison in her veins. Henry and Grace had sold her loyalty for a cut of her empire, their pride a facade for greed. They deserved consequences, didn't they? Yet doubt gnawed, a persistent whisper. Was she punishing too harshly, crossing a line from retribution to cruelty? Destroying Jack and Lily felt fair, their betrayal raw and personal. But Henry and Grace were her blood, aging, flawed, their twilight years fragile beneath her hammer. Could she doom them to poverty, to shame, without losing a piece of herself? "They doomed me first," she argued inwardly, her voice fierce. "They bet on my collapse, mocked my blindness, planned my ruin." Still, the question lingered. Would her soul survive the fallout, or would she become the monster she despised? She pushed it aside, her fingers trembling as she hacked Jack's secret account. $120,000 siphoned from her bonuses over 2 years, labeled Paradise Fund. She clawed it back, her breath hitching as she left a digital note. Paradise lost. Then she froze their joint credit cards, stranding them in Maui with nothing but their lies and a maxed-out resort bill. Her lips curled, a flicker of grim satisfaction, a spark in the dark. But the plan grew darker, her mind spiraling into deeper shadows. She could leak Jack's client emails to the press, frame him for fraud beyond his job, send Lily's text to her entire follower list, exposing her greed in raw detail. Mail Henry and Grace's financial sins to their church, their pastor's judgment a final blow to their respectability. Each idea felt like a step further into the abyss, a brick in a wall between justice and cruelty. She paused, her cursor blinking over the send button, and wrestled with the line. Am I punishing them or proving I'm better? She wondered, her chest tight. Do I stop at ruin or push to annihilation? The answer eluded her, a shadow slipping through her grasp. She stood, stretching her stiff limbs, and glanced at the clock. 4:15 a.m. Exhaustion clawed at her, But adrenaline kept her sharp. She packed her bag, her movements mechanical, and left Maui at 5 a.m., a ghost slipping through the terminal. Her note to Jack, left at the resort desk, was curt. Work emergency. Flew home. Enjoy your trip. Let them sip their false victory, their champagne laced with the poison of her silence. The real storm was coming, and she'd unleash it from afar. Emma landed in Boston at 1 p.m., her body a husk of fatigue, her mind a blade honed by fury. She didn't go home. She couldn't face the echoes of their life. She met Sarah at a downtown cafe, the clatter of plates grounding her as she handed over the footage, the text, the receipts. Sarah's eyes gleamed, a shark scenting blood in the water. "This is a legal massacre," she said, her voice low with excitement. "Bigamy's a felony, and there are conspiracies on tape. Audio, video, the works. Divorce, restraining order, asset lock. We'll bury them alive." By 3 p.m., the plan was in motion. Sarah filed the divorce papers, citing every betrayal in excruciating detail, and secured a court order barring Jack from their accounts within hours. Emma's bank moved her funds, millions in savings, intellectual property, investments, to a new vault, untouchable by her family's grasping hands. She called the movers again, her voice cold. "Strip it bare by dusk. Everything I bought, art, furniture, rugs, electronics. Leave nothing they can claim." The house she'd poured her soul into, her haven of quiet nights and shared laughter, became a hollow shell. She drove there herself, stepping into the empty space, and scrawled across the living room wall in black marker, "Checkmate." The words stared back, a silent scream of her triumph. Henry and Grace were next. She canceled their monthly stipends, her fingers steady as she emailed their creditors, exposing years of overdue loans and missed payments. The leak hit the web at 5 p.m. Boston couple's financial fraud exposed, with bank statements and tax records no one could refute. Their phones buzzed with messages, faux sympathy from friends already distancing themselves, their socialite circle shrinking by the minute. A memory flashed, Henry teaching her to fish on a quiet lake, his hands steady as he baited her hook. "You're my pride," he'd said, smiling. Now she'd strip that pride bare, leave them floundering. Lily's punishment was subtler, a slow poison seeping into her shallow world. Emma hacked her sister's Instagram, planting cracks in the facade. Fake DMs suggesting unpaid debts, a cheating scandal with a mystery man, a breakdown in a luxury rehab no one could verify. When the divorce broke, Lily's followers would turn, her curated life collapsing under the weight of scrutiny and doubt. Another flashback, Lily at their cousin's wedding, twirling in Emma's arms under fairy lights, whispering, "You're my safe place, Em." That safety was gone, incinerated by her greed. Jack's career took its hit too. The anonymous tip to his bank's HR department landed at 6 p.m. Emails showing flirtations with clients, hints of falsified loan approvals, enough to trigger an audit that would end him. A memory stung. Jack at his first bank holiday party, pulling her onto the dance floor, his eyes warm. "You're my rock," he'd said, spinning her under the lights. She'd crushed that rock to dust. The moral question struck again, sharper now, a blade against her throat. Was she going too far? Jack and Lily had stabbed her heart, their secret vows a calculated theft of her trust, their laughter a venom that still burned. Henry and Grace had sold her loyalty for a cut of her empire, their affection a transaction she'd been too blind to see. But this, poverty, shame, ruin, was a heavy hammer. Could she wield it without breaking herself? "They broke me first," she thought, her voice fierce in her mind. They chose greed over love, betrayal over blood. Yet guilt lingered, a whisper of doubt. Am I justice or revenge? Do I stop at consequences or push to destruction? She didn't have an answer, not yet. She checked into a hotel downtown, her new address a secret, her old life a ghost fading in the rearview. The city lights glittered beyond her window, a silent witness to her transformation. 7 days later, Jack, Lily, Henry, and Grace returned from Maui, their tans glowing, their laughter bright as they opened the front door. The laughter died in their throats. Sarah stood in the barren living room, divorce papers spread across a lone folding table, the tablet blaring their chapel confession. Jack's vows, Lily's giggles, Henry and Grace's plotting. Lily gasped, clutching Jack's arm, her face draining of color. Henry's jaw dropped, his hands trembling. Grace clutched her pearls, her eyes wide with panic. "What the hell is this?" Jack roared, his fists clenched, his voice shaking with rage. "Emma's exit," Sarah said, her tone icy, her posture unyielding. "She knows everything. The wedding, the plan, the greed. Divorce is filed. The house is sold. Closing tomorrow. Your accounts are empty, frozen by court order. Bigamy's a crime, and conspiracy's worse. You're done." "Where's my daughter?" Grace sobbed, her voice breaking as she clutched Henry's arm. "Gone from your lives," Sarah replied, her words cutting like glass. Her message: blood's a coincidence, loyalty's a choice, you chose wrong. Jack lunged, his face red with fury, but 2 security guards stepped from the shadows, pinning his arms as he thrashed. "I'll fight this," he bellowed, his voice cracking. "She can't do this. I've got rights." "Good luck," Sarah said, her voice calm and cold. "Your bank's investigating you. Fraud allegations, falsified records. Your career's over, and you've got 24 hours to clear out before the new owners take possession." Lily crumpled to the floor, sobbing into her hands, her white dress, now wrinkled and absurd in the empty room, pooling around her. "How could she do this?" she wailed, her voice raw. "She trusted you," Sarah said, her gaze unflinching. "You betrayed her. This is the consequence." Henry cursed under his breath, his face ashen. "We're ruined," he muttered, sinking onto the table's edge. Grace wailed, her hands trembling. "She's our daughter. She can't abandon us." "She's not your ATM anymore," Sarah shot back. "And those secrets you buried, the tax evasion, the fake charities, they're public now. Your friends are already gone. Your choices did this." Emma watched from her hotel suite, a live feed from Sarah's phone flickering on her laptop. The scene unfolded like a play she'd scripted, each line delivered with the precision of her plan. Should she forgive them? Expose more? Walk away entirely? The questions circled, a relentless echo, but her answer crystallized as she sipped whiskey, the burn steadying her. They chose their path, she thought, her mind clear, her heart hardening. I chose mine. They gambled on my weakness. I proved my strength. The guards escorted them out, their protests fading into the snowy night. The house stood empty, a tomb of their ambition, its walls silent witnesses to their fall. Emma turned from the screen, the city skyline glittering beyond her window, a canvas of her new beginning. 2 years later, Emma stood atop her Manhattan empire, the city's glow a mirror to the light she'd reclaimed within. She'd learned that trust, once shattered, could forge a stronger self, a truth carved from the ashes of betrayal. Jack, Lily, Henry, and Grace faded into shadows of regret, their greed a lesson in morality. What you sow in deceit, you reap in ruin. Reflect for a moment. Have you faced a betrayal that reshaped you? Share your story below. Let's grow through this together. Subscribe to Graceful Revenge Diaries, share this journey, and join us next time for another tale of resilience. Jack shuffled through temp jobs in a dingy Chicago suburb. His charm faded, his reputation a stain no amount of scrubbing could erase. He lived in a cramped apartment, his days a blur of rejection letters and cheap beer, his nights haunted by the memory of her voice. Steady, unyielding, in that final recording, Lily worked as a barista in a strip mall cafe, her beauty dulled by exhaustion, her Instagram abandoned, her followers long gone. She stared at her reflection each morning, searching for the girl who'd dreamed of paradise, finding only regret. Henry and Grace withered in a subsidized flat in Lowell, their savings drained, their social circle vanished like smoke. The country club had blacklisted them, the church had turned away, their once proud names synonymous with scandal. They sat in silence most days, their hands trembling as they counted pennies for groceries, their twilight years a shadow of the luxury they'd chased. Former friends crossed the street to avoid them, their legacy reduced to whispers of disgrace. Emma raised a glass with Daniel, her new partner, a soft-spoken sculptor whose steady presence grounded her. They stood on the balcony of her penthouse, the city lights a constellation below, the air crisp with promise. "To truth," she said, her voice a blend of steel and silk, her eyes bright with a hard-won peace. "To choosing who we let in." Daniel smiled, his hand brushing hers. "To you," he said simply, his warmth a balm to her scars. She'd wrestled with forgiveness in those early months, nights spent staring at the ceiling, replaying their voices, Jack's vows, Lily's giggles, Henry and Grace's plotting. Could she absolve them, rebuild a bridge to a family that had torched her trust? The thought had lingered, a ghost in her quiet moments, but it faded against the weight of their choices. They'd gambled on her softness, her loyalty, her love, and lost everything: their status, their future, their pride. She'd weighed exposure too, the temptation to push further, to leak every text, every lie, to burn their names to cinders. The hammer had felt good in her hands, its swing a righteous arc, but she'd paused, her breath steady, and asked herself, does it heal me or hollow me? She'd chosen restraint, not mercy. Let the world's judgment suffice. Let their ruin speak for itself. Walking away had been an option, a clean break from the battlefield, a life unburdened by their shadows. She'd done that too, in a way. Moved cities, changed numbers, built walls they couldn't breach. But this wasn't flight. It was rebirth. She'd faced their betrayal, balanced the scales, and forged a path beyond their reach. The wind tugged at her hair, cool and insistent, as Daniel pulled her close. She leaned into him, her glass catching the light, her reflection a woman forged anew. The past was a shadow, faint and fading. The future was hers, bright and unbowed. See you in the graceful revenge.